Yo, checking out the audio levels real fast before I get started here. The levels real fast before I get started here.
Let's talk about fascism
Yeah.
and the accusations of fascism.
Let's talk about fascism.
Because I'm doing a video called "Nobody Loves Fascism More Than I Do." In classic.
Whoa, what a cool guy. That guy's
me
so
titling
cool.
my videos.
The levels real fast before I get started here.
Let's talk about fascism
Yeah.
and the accusations.
Levels real fast before I get started here.
Let's talk about fascism
Yeah.
and the accusations. Let's talk about fascism and the accusations. Let's talk about fascism
Yeah.
and the accusations. Let's talk about fascism and the accusations.
Okay. That's totally throwing me off. Does that audio come through? Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Okay. Let's have some audio from them in the background, see how that works.
What does fascist mean?
Let's have some audio from them in the background, see how that works.
What does fascist mean?
Let's have some audio from them in the background, see how that works.
What does fascist mean?
Let's have some audio from them in the background, see how that works. Whoa! So loud on my end. Okay.
So, first of all, by a show of hands,
let's see how that volume works.
So
loud on my end. Okay.
So, first of all, by a show of hands,
let's see how that volume works. Loud on my end. Okay.
So, first of all, by a show of hands,
let's see how that volume works. Loud on my end. Okay. Okay, I mean, I think that's okay. Let's see how that volume works. Okay, I mean, I think that's... Oh, I need to mute this one. Okay.
I mean, Pisco, define fascist.
So,
fascism. Whoa, crazy. I'm talking over Pisco right now. He can't hear me. What a
ideology,
bastard. Fascism. Whoa, crazy. I'm talking over Pisco right now. He can't hear me. What a bastard. Okay, yeah. Alright, cool. Alright, so I think that's good enough. Alright, yeah, we're gonna... Man, I wish I could just have audio dialed in every time. It'd be cool to have some intro music. Like, I was gonna have this playing in as I come in. I'm trying to actually get aesthetic here. Kind of have a mood that I'm setting, you know? It's supposed to be royalty free, okay? YouTube, copyright free. Alright, don't strike me. Anyways, we're gonna hear this vaccine debate between this YouTube person, and I think this guy is a used car salesman. I think this guy sells testosterone pills. And then this guy, he makes beats on his downtime, and he technically calls himself an audio engineer. Anyways, I don't know what that was all about. My bad. No, we're gonna be watching this debate. It's between Dave Farina and Dr. Dan Wilson on one side versus Steve Kirsch and Pierre Kory on the other side. It's like a vaccine debate. And then if we have some time, we'll watch this debate between Pisco and PF Jung. Is Charlie Kirk a fascist or not? Yeah. All right. Well, Let's just dive into it then.
Audience think that there is a link between.
Obviously, no camera stream today. I'm just not in the mood right now. I look kind of disheveled. I have a window pulled up on the side here. If I need to look anything up, we'll look it up as we go along.
Between vaccines and autism. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Wow. About
Where are they at?
23 of you. Wow, interesting.
23 out of what? I don't know what that.
And how many of you don't believe there is a link? Hands up.
We need the intermediate option too. I see a lot less people. Jesus Christ.
About 18. So that's amazing. I'm glad that we have this kind of mix.
But I guess just the distribution of the audience, right? You got like a lot of anti-vaxxers up front, I guess.
The audience here tonight. This is what Pangburn's all about, getting us all together to have good faith, helpful conversations. So we've been at this for 10 years at Pangburn, producing events. We produced the 4-part Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson series in 2017. If you guys haven't seen our recent God debate between Alex O'Connor and Dinesh D'Souza, that's one of my favorite debates we've ever produced. Check that one out. Also, Dillahunty versus Jordan Peterson's a fantastic discussion. So in our 10 years of operation, I'm not sure that we've ever produced
Oh, guys,
like,
share, and subscribe.
This high.
This is Mr. Hex.
There are people literally dying,
do politics breakdowns,
living sick.
I play video games, which is super special. Who doesn't play video games, right? Super crazy. And I'm supposed to react to TV shows, movies, but we're behind schedule on that, which, by the way, all right, I have some things I'm working on that I can't talk about right now. Anyways.
Due to misinformation. Now, depending on who you ask, that misinformation exists on the other side. We have both sides represented here tonight. On the quote-unquote pro-vaccine side, we have Professor Dave Explains, Dave Farina, and Debunk the Funk, Dr. Dan Wilson. On the quote-unquote anti-vaccine side, we have Steve Kirsch and Dr. Pierre Kory. Like many of the labels that are grafted on save lives. And there's also a sub-question to the third question. RFK Jr. pulls 500 off being on that topic.
Christ, dude.
Side has equal amount of time on each topic.
Okay.
6 topics have been agreed upon for tonight's discussion. The goal is to try to allow enough time topic. Number 2, Vlad, for limit against COVID, have access. We are going
to hear
and thoughts on tonight's debate before we jump into the first topic. Let's start with Dave and Dan.
Okay, so I cannot tell you how disheartening it is to hear so many people still falling for this vaccine's autism bullshit. It started with Andrew Wakefield in the 90s in the
says this autistic
study, and
guy,
it's been
right?
a plague on mankind ever since. No matter how many studies are done, no matter how many hundreds of thousands or millions of children that are studied, where
oh, is it hundreds of thousands or is it millions? Huh, Dave? Huh?
Absolutely zero correlation is found. Anti-vaxxers continue to push this myth, which is absolutely insane and utterly unfounded. Not only is there zero data to support this link and a mountain of data disproving the link, it also just completely betrays any understanding of what autism even is. Autism is an inborn, genetic-based neurological condition. You can't catch autism. You can't get autism. You are born autistic.
A neurological condition? Bro, what is he talking about? Neurological? This guy's autistic. I don't know what he's talking about.
And people say, oh my God, it's a vaccine, and it's just complete horseshit. There's essentially nothing to discuss here. We're going to discuss it anyway, apparently, but that's how it is. Yep.
All right, thanks, Dave. Go ahead, Dan.
Barn vaccine's kind of weird, though, bro. Like, they have needles.
I'll echo that. And just a general comment about this
that you're putting in your body.
I think that the evidence is very clear for what the right answers are for each of these topics. And to be on stage with 2 people who have profited so much and gained so much from saying the complete opposite of what the facts
lying, isn't it?
Is frankly just a little bit frustrating. But we are here to
all right, Dave went a little too far in there.
Who are anti-vaccine.
You got to roll with the hecklers in the audience. You can't just, you can't let them get under your skin like that.
For your all entertainment, and I think you all should enjoy.
Thanks, Dan. All right. Pierre, how about you?
Yeah. I think we already have
nice and hot on the mic, Pierre.
I think we already have the answer. So, anyway, the opening statement for me is I'll just say that, my background, I have 3 daughters, all of them fully vaccinated according to the CDC schedule. physician that went pretty high in academic medicine. I was the chief of the critical care service and the director of the main ICU with one of the largest academic medical centers in the country.
What? Whoa. Oh, god damn it.
Or two, you are highly intent to medical centers in the country.
Hate these two people who are anti.
Anyway, the opening statement for me is I'll just say that my background, I have 3 daughters, all of them fully vaccinated according to the CDC schedule. Physician that went pretty high in academic medicine. I was the chief of the critical care service and the director of the main ICU with one of the largest academic medical centers in the country. I also published over 50 papers, maybe 60, and one of my textbooks is translated to 7 languages, and it's in 3rd edition.
7, bro.
What?
You can't even speak. You only speak one language. Dumbass.
In fact, I was one of the leaders who launched the program here called Project Hypothermia. My protocol in my hospital was the first one in all of New York City to cool patients.
That's
and by the time I was done,
dope,
every hospital had a
dude.
protocol. So I have a long history on this. So how did I get to this purported anti-vax position?
Okay.
Well, let's be clear on what an anti-vaxxer is, right?
Let's be
And
clear.
also let's be clear on what disinformation and misinformation is, because already I'm hearing things so completely inaccurate. Let's be clear. Misinformation is something said out of ignorance or error. Disinformation is something said with the intent to mislead. If anti-vaxxers are disinformationists, what is their incentive to mislead? Why are they so up in arms against people getting vaccinated? It's because they want to protect them. There's only 2 ways you get to be a purported anti-vaxxer. One is through the direct lived reality of your child's life getting destroyed within days to a week of a vaccine. Or 2, you are highly educated and you've done sufficient research into the
Or 3, you're getting paid by a right-wing political media apparatus that had to fabricate this narrative and now are running with it as a campaign, football narrative or whatever, and you're on the payroll for it because it's a lucrative ecosystem for you to thrive in to make money off of doing these speaking tours. But actually, all right, like this guy said, there's only really 2 options. Either one, you had it experienced to you, so it's real, or 2, you're super smart and based and you did all your research, which also means it's true. So really, when you think about it, the only 2 options for why you would think this is because you're right. Don't you just love how he just defined himself into being right? That circularity, like, oh, I'm right because I'm right. The only way that you take the position that I have is if you're right, if it's been proven right. Option 3, you're just saying this because there's a financial incentive for you to do so.
background and history of the vaccine industry. It is very well described that anti-vax positions, patients who choose not to vaccinate their children, are always highly educated. They're critical thinkers who do deep research. And coming from
What is that based off of? Like, it's possible that there's a stat out there that this guy's referring to, but when you hear stuff like that, you should ask, is there actually anything behind what you're saying? Is there anything you can back that up with? You will be surprised. People like this guy, people like Steven Crowder, some of the biggest people that you've ever heard of in your life, a lot of them don't know the answer to these questions, but no one thinks to ask these questions, and they're good at deflecting off of it when you do.
where I told you I came from, I found out that in my research in COVID, in my advocacy in COVID, I came out, I told the world to use corticosteroids in the hospitalized phase of this disease. I did it months before everyone. I got attacked, and my whole university went after me. It became standard of care worldwide. When I said the same thing about ivermectin, my life went completely sideways. Sideways. I've lost 4 jobs. I've been without income at times, but yet apparently I'm a grifter. And how did I get to this position on vaccine?
I'm curious as they dive in here. He's kind of rambling right now, but what he means when he says his position on ivermectin, because ivermectin has come out after research that's been conducted after the fact, or even during, but like after the whole COVID pandemic. The jury on that one, in case you didn't keep up with the research, because I know it was in kind of a limbo state during the pandemic, whether or not it was effective to use or not. You had people like Joe Rogan using it, but it came out afterwards that it just wasn't really effective for fighting COVID. And that's not to say that, if you take it, it's going to kill you because it's not effective. But that's just to say, like, there wasn't really ever anything to back it up other than people just wanted it to be true because they wanted an alternative to the vaccine, to be completely honest with you. This sounds like the most trivial, stupid thing ever. My cat is sitting, I wish I could show you, my cat is sitting on top of my PC, and it's like the most picturesque picture of my cat that I've seen in a long time. I had to take it. Had to interrupt this regularly televised broadcast for that. Anyways,
vaccines because I found that I was living in a world where a lie could be told and everyone believed it around the world that ivermectin was ineffective at COVID. And when I saw that happening before my eyes with one of the greatest disinformation campaigns ever perpetrated by pharma, I asked myself, what other lies could they do? And that's how I'm here. Thanks.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform. Describe what you want.
that's super cool, bro.
All right, Steve, go ahead.
You know, I was hugely pro-vaccine before the COVID shots. And if you asked me, should you get the COVID shot, I was like saying, of course. You'd be insane not to get the COVID shots. So I got my 2, my wife got 4, my kids are all vaccinated. And then I started hearing stories and started hearing stories, and some of them were of friends who had their relatives die. I heard one story from a friend who said that, she asked me, are the COVID vaccines safe? And I said, of course they're safe. They're the safest thing ever. I'm like repeating what I've been hearing from the CDC. And I said, why are you asking me such a dumb question? And I was a little bit more polite than that. And she said, well, 3 of my relatives were perfectly healthy, and a week after they got the COVID vaccine, they're dead. And I said, that's impossible. The COVID vaccines are perfectly safe. Nobody, you know, it's like 1 in a million chance. So you can't be one.
I cannot believe that this is even his opening argument. Your opening arguments are supposed to be like maybe not necessarily your strongest, because maybe you want to keep a trump card up your sleeve, but these are supposed to be very compelling points. The point that he's making here is, number one, there's a statistical error here. Number two, there's a correlation causation error here. So the first part is he links a story like, I thought they were perfectly safe. That's what I heard from the CDC and everybody else. But then, you know, I met somebody and she said that 2 of her relatives got the COVID shot and then they died a week later. So number one, what is the sample size there? 2? 2 fucking people that he heard from somebody else? What do you know the actual incidence of that is? Because what if it's like 1 in every... What if it's 2 out of every 340 million people? Okay, that's unfortunate, but it's a lot better than, what, a couple 100,000, couple tens of thousands? Which, if you think a couple 100,000 is a large number, keep in mind, that's actually the number of people who died in the United States. Hold on, let me just double check this real fast before I get called out on this. How many died of COVID in the US? Yeah, okay, so California alone, over 100,000. We had, not by state, I just want to know for the entire US. Total number of US deaths. All-time cases. I need deaths. Okay, 1 million. So this number is even higher than a couple 100,000. This is 1 million by a factor of 1,000. So his sample size is 2. And that's 2 compared to what? 1 million? So which one do you think? Which option should we go with there? Should we go with the vaccine or should we go with the unvaccinated and die due to COVID? Because on one hand, we're looking at 1,100,000 people, 1,100,000 people. And on his end, he's got 2 stories that heard about. So that's number 1, okay? And that's taking for granted, by the way, that that his hearsay from somebody else that he knew, somebody else's dad's mother's twice removed cousin heard that their dad works at Nintendo, who told him that somebody had died of COVID. Taking for granted that that person's even telling him an accurate, true story, or that he's even telling us a real story. Anecdotes are not data. They're not going to tell you statistics. This is one of the cases of truth lies in statistics. This is the abuse of statistics in order to obfuscate the truth. But much more fundamental and much more importantly, the other reason, the other bad argumental error that he made right here is that he's taking for granted from this person, oh, they had a vaccine and then they died a week later. Oh, shoot. So the vaccine must have caused them to die, right? That's the implication. He says that without saying it because he knows he can't actually defend that point. That's, if you're an expert debater, you zero in on that point and then you start challenging him on that. Oh, wait a second. When you say they died a week after getting the vaccine, are you saying that the vaccine caused them to die? Oh, no, 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 I'm just saying this. And, oh, okay, because it seems like you're actually just trying to be really fucking sneaky, to be completely honest with you, in what you're saying. You know, you're exaggerating and implying things through your abuse of the terminology. What else was going on at the time period when people were getting the vaccine? Oh, COVID was going around. So if you already had COVID in your system by the time you got a vaccine, does the vaccine really matter at that point? Because it was incubating in your system. How long does it take to incubate? I think it takes like a week to incubate, right? So you got a vaccine and then you died of COVID afterwards. Oh yeah, it might be because you got the vaccine after you had already got infected with COVID. That's number one. Number two, this claim that they make, like, oh, the doctors and stuff said that the vaccines are perfectly safe. They were 100% safe. No one ever said that. We don't operate in that world of every drug is 100% safe. Everything that you do, literally any fucking thing that you do is going to be 100% safe. It's not the reality you exist in. We exist in, like, statistical probabilities. So when we look at medications, it's like you're highly, 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 highly unlikely to have a complication due to the vaccine. Statistically, super small. But you have a much higher likelihood of developing COVID and dying or having permanent damage to your body and your brain. Look it up, by the way, long COVID, if you don't get vaccinated. So which one of those risks do you want to take? That's what it is. Calculated risk. It's economics. All right. So we don't even know if they died because of the vaccine. They could have died for unrelated matters. They could have died from something else. We're assuming that they're dying because of the vaccine, just because they took the vaccine a week prior. They could die for any other number of reasons. They could have died from a different illness. But he's not going to get into the details of that. And I question whether or not they're even going to challenge him on that. Part of the thing is, when you're in debates like this, you have to understand is you do have to pick and choose the things that you want to battle on, because you are picking and choosing with the time that you have with the audience what you want the audience to focus on. And so if they sit here and they interrogate the story that he's telling, they might waste time, and it may not really resonate with anybody. You might just go half of the debate litigating that simple point and not making broader, points and seeds in people's mind that will grow into bigger ideas. So they may not seize on that story to interrogate it. But I have a strong feeling that if you do, you're going to find that he's highly exaggerating that story.
In a trillion here, I mean, that's statistically unlikely. And she said, yeah, but they're dead. And so that was the trigger that got me to go and start to look at the data. And there were other stories, by the way, for other people who were getting vaccine injured. I've never heard these stories before for any vaccine. So I started looking at the data.
This is so incredibly stupid. And I don't know, what did this guy say his background is? Because you've never heard of any other vaccine having any deaths associated at all whatsoever in the entire history of vaccines? Is he purporting to be a doctor? Because that sounds like something where even if you didn't know, if you had no idea one way or the other, if I were to ask you, hey, do you think in the entire history of modern medicine, of having vaccines, of all the different like research and development and the trials and all the technology over the years and competitor drug companies and everything, do you think there's ever been a vaccine that has ever had any side effects or death or illnesses associated with it at all? Do you think the answer to that question for most people would be like, oh, no, I had no idea. I thought, everything was 100% hunky-dory and they grew vaccines out of the Oompa Loompa factory. No, it's bullshit. It's stupid. And you know what? You should be offended when you watch stuff like this, because he is talking to you, the entire audience, the American people, like you're fucking stupid. They don't have respect for your level of intelligence. Don't let them talk down to you like that. It's bullshit.
I looked at the VAERS data. I looked at all sorts of papers and so forth.
the VAERS data doesn't mean anything, and everybody knows this already. This has already been debunked, 5, 6, 7,000 times already. If he has had this debate, this has already been brought up. So he's intentionally being dishonest. I guarantee it. I guarantee he's debated this before. Everybody knows the VAERS is just a reporting system. That is it. All it reports is that you have adverse effects after a vaccine. It also doesn't mean that you have that the adverse effects are because of the vaccine. The point of this data is to create data that they can later on go into and potentially find from those correlations if anything is causal or anything else. So, for example, it could be that a lot of the people that get vaccines have pre-existing conditions that exist before they've ever gotten the vaccine or anything related to COVID. And they may have symptoms of something after they get the vaccine, but it's related to their underlying, preconditions or whatever. And so when you go back and you look into the VAERS database system, that's the kind of stuff that you look for to see, okay, let me look to see, are there any pre-existing conditions from these reports, and maybe we eliminate those people from the data set because we're kind of able to look at those cases and go, we don't see a strong, evidence that your adverse reactions are related to the vaccine. It seems like it's due to your pre-existing conditions, right? Oh, were they taking some kind of medication that throws off, something? That's something that you might want to look at too. All it is just raw data. And when I say raw data, because people throw this term around, I don't think they explain it well enough. Raw data just means like you've gone out, you've measured something, you've taken data, you have it to store, you haven't analyzed it, you haven't combed through it, you haven't interpreted it to see what it means or what it says. You're just collecting it, basically.
And I ended up writing a 150-page article on questioning whether you should get the COVID shots or not. It was published in Trial Site News, got a lot of readers, super popular. And after I published that article, people on my scientific advisory board, which I had for finding early treatments for COVID, resigned, and they said they never wanted to speak to me again, and I was a bad person. And I said, well, was there something that I said that was wrong in the article? Because if I'm wrong, I just would like to be corrected, because I don't want to be spreading misinformation. And they said, we never want to talk to you again, goodbye. And so people...
That might sound crazy to you. It might sound crazy to you when you hear something like that. Oh, that's SJW, cancel culture, woke. You're hearing his perspective of the story. If you're a doctor, you're a colleague or a researcher of some sort, and you've known this guy, you've worked with him for a long time, and you are intelligent enough, you are educated enough, and you know to research and to look for and to get the information on any of these like medical or scientific, stuff related to your industry, you look at a colleague who is now spreading misinformation or disinformation, whatever like the other guy was saying earlier. It doesn't, whatever. Misinformation, it's both bad. And you look at them and you might know, hey, this person is highly intelligent. I've had conversations with this person about science, about medicine. I know that they know how to look up information. I know they know how to debunk this stuff. I know that they know that certain things that they're saying should trigger alarm bells because of what they know about biology. Why are they writing articles giving like a misleading narrative to the public? Because they should know better. Consider that might actually be the perspective of his colleagues when he came out with this, that he's not telling you about because that wasn't from his perspective. Imagine you're one of those colleagues, and then you see someone distribute misleading information to the general public about something that's going to be like massively impactful for all of society. Your impression might actually just be like, this guy is like a quack, like a loony. He's profiting off of, misleading the public and using his credentials, using our profession, our license to do so. Yeah, you might look at someone and be like, I don't ever want to fucking talk to you again. Like, I don't think you have good intentions, and I can't believe you're doing this, right? That might be valid. So just keep that in mind.
People were never willing to tell me why I was wrong. And the best that I can get is people who tried to tell me, oh, you're wrong, but they don't provide any reason that I'm wrong that's backed by evidence. There's just hand-waving a text. So it's been a frustrating experience for me, people saying that I'm wrong, but nobody willing to actually show the data that actually confirms that I'm wrong and they're right. So
let's see if they do that in this debate. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Do that someday. But in the meantime, I've been calling for data transparency. And there's no study that was ever done, published in a peer-reviewed journal, saying that if you withhold the data from the public, you're going to get better public health outcomes. The public deserves seeing the public health data. It's always being withheld. It's being withheld from everybody in the United States. It's always been kept secret. RFK Jr. is going to change that. But calling for data transparency, why can't we have the data and let everybody decide from the data? Why does it have to be hidden?
All right. All right, thank you, Steve, so much. We're going to get to the first question right away here. Let's get into it. Dave and Dan, you guys are going to be able to start this one. That means Steve and Pierre are going to get the last word on this question. So the question is, vaccines and autism, is there a link?
So it's funny to me because it's always the same story, right? I was pro-vax and my kids are vaccinated. It's just the COVID vax. But if it was just the COVID vaccine, why are we here talking about the entire vaccine schedule, right? Why are we talking about vaccines and
So right out the gate, I think Dave is like kind of deflected a little bit to a different point, right? Because what was the question? It was let's go back actually.
Junior's going to. There's no transparency.
Dave and Dan, you guys are going to be able to start this one. That means Steve and Pierre are going to get the last word on this question. So the question is, vaccines and autism, is there a link?
just the COVID vax? But if it was just the COVID.
Okay. Do vaccines cause autism? And then Dave goes straight away to the thing about you guys is you guys only talk about the you guys say it's only about the COVID vax, but then you're talking about the whole vaccine schedule. I'm glad he brought up this point, even though it's kind of off on a tangent from what the host was trying to direct the conversation to. But this is very true. Pay attention when people do this. They'll be like, oh, I just have some questions about the COVID vaccine. It was rushed and blah, 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 and there's a lot of just weird things about it. And it's like, okay, well then why did you all of a sudden 180 become like anti every other vaccine in the whole like vaccine schedule? And like now you don't think kids should get vaccines anymore. It's like, no, there's something bigger going on here. There's something deeper going on to have you like 180 and flip-flop and all that shit so quickly.
COVID vaccine, why are we here talking about the entire vaccine schedule, right? Why are we talking about vaccines and autism? Is there a vaccine in the schedule that you think is good? How is it that we're always fixating on the COVID vaccine and then all of these people here that are supporting you are just magically against all vaccines, right? If you're not anti-vaxxers, how did that happen exactly?
I'll help you out. It's all of them. Keep going.
Huh?
It's all of them. Keep going.
Okay, so he admits it.
Okay,
so you are just against all vaccines.
Yeah.
That's
It's your turn. Go ahead.
So you listed, Pierre, you listed a lot of accolades in your introduction.
Let's, you guys in the audience, please don't head to the stage. We need to let the information come out. Let these guys have the conversation.
Okay, Pierre, so you listed a lot of accolades in your introduction, and the common line that a lot of people who think that vaccines cause autism say is that autism has greatly increased in the past few decades. You two would agree with that line of reasoning, right?
That's not the primary line of reasoning, but yes,
but it's necessary, right?
That's one of the things, but that's not the primary
But if
thing.
autism was not increasing over the past few decades, that would be interesting to you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so do you have any knowledge, any mechanism, any scientific reasoning as to why there is a biological reason why autism is increasing as opposed to a diagnostic criteria reason?
Yes, we do.
Okay, let's start.
Lay it on us.
So should we go now?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's back and forth. It's back and forth.
Let me be clear. So vaccines have a number of adjuvants. Many of them have been shown to be neurotoxic and producing neuroinflammation.
Which
It's
one?
in all of the inserts.
Which one?
Anything.
Okay, I want to hear this. When he said adjuvant, I don't know what this word means. So this is stuff that I want to impart on you guys. Like, if you don't know shit, literally look it up. The world's information is at your fingertips. Okay. An adjuvant is a drug or a combination that is used to increase the efficacy or potency of certain drugs. Specifically, the term can refer to adjuvant therapy, cancer management. Immunologic okay. Is a substance that increases or modulates the immune response to a vaccine. Okay, interesting. All right.
With mercury, thimerosal, aluminum. Known neurotoxic.
There's no
Are those in MMR?
So there's no mercury.
It's almost like seminal fluid, like not to be gross, but in a serious tone. Seminal fluid, right? Let's be mature about this. Um, your sperm, your little floaters, they swim in it. They get ejaculated out into it, right? But it's kind of like, yeah, an adjuvant is kind of like seminal fluid, because seminal fluid creates like a good substrate, so to speak, for your little floaters to exist in as they're trying to make their way to an egg on the other end of that journey. Because like the female reproductive system has basically its own ecosystem, and they don't necessarily thrive in each other's ecosystem. Anyways,
Mercury in
those in
childhood
the
vaccines?
Yeah.
So
Mercury
there's
was
no
never in
mercury.
the vaccines?
There's no mercury currently in childhood
But
vaccines.
why'd they take it out?
So when they took it
2001.
out, did
Why?
autism
Quite a long time
increase?
ago.
Why'd they take it out?
Because
Because
people
of the public fervor.
Yes.
They had
this is an interesting point because I heard about this recently. And that's so sad, and it's so silly. It's such an indication of our time. They took mercury out of vaccines despite there being any evidence, just because these fucking idiots just spread this dumb shit everywhere, and people just believe it based on, like, nothing at the end of the day.
never been demonstrated to be harmful at all. They took it out because of public fervor. But the point is 2001. And when they took it out, did autism rates decline or did they go up?
It's not just not just mercury.
Okay, so it's not thimerosal.
So
Check
so
thimerosal.
This is a good point that he's bringing up. I'm glad that he highlighted this part. Is he's basically saying, hey, like, you guys got mercury banned out of vaccines. Congratulations. It was stupid, but congratulations. Did we see a decrease in autism from that? No. Okay, so there's one of your claims that you guys made over the years that didn't really pan out. All right, let's keep a score of this.
Say
so did
I said many of the adjuvants.
You said
So which
mercury.
one?
Polysorbate,
Which one?
aluminum.
Hang on. So you
Aluminum.
said
Any of
you
them. They're
said
in the
you
interest
said
of
mercury.
vaccines that it cause neurological injuries.
Which one?
He's just
Here,
listing one of them.
here. You said mercury.
Yes.
Okay.
And-
First
and
of all,
others.
first of all,
Not a good debate tactic, this guy. Oh, you said mercury. You said the audience doesn't really care. Okay. Well, I'm trying to think about this for a minute. Actually, he said mercury. No, the audience will pick up on this. The audience can pick up on his counter argument. Just to be clear, his counter argument was, okay, yeah, sure, the mercury's out and they still have autism, but it has all these other adjuvants, aluminum and other, materials that they use. And he goes, well, you said mercury, right? I think the audience will pick up that the logic here is, okay, yeah, they took out the mercury, but they could still get autism from the vaccines because they have all these other adjuvants. You need to respond to that. And this guy just going like, well, technically you said mercury. Okay, well, he shifted. Like, here's the issue with that structure of argument. You're hung up on it. Okay, you want a concession on that. You said mercury. Okay, you're right. I'm sorry. I did say mercury. You're right about that. You got me there. You got me there, bud. However, what I wanted to say is actually all of the adjuvants. Okay, the point that I'm making, and if you didn't really catch it there, is that they will simply just concede like, oh yeah, I had like a slip up there, or I didn't mention all of the points of my argument. Let me just, you're right, technically I did say that, I messed up when I said that, let me move on to the stronger argument, which he's going to do now. And so you responding by, oh, well, technically, you said mercury, it's not going to be convincing to anybody. I don't know what I would call this specific debate technique. I would have to think about it to come up with like a name or how to more properly communicate this idea. I'll have to think about it because I didn't really explain it well. But anyways, let's move on.
First of all, that's not. First of all, that's not an adjuvant.
What?
First of all, mercury is not an adjuvant.
It's an ingredient then. How's that?
What is it? What does it do?
It's an ingredient in the vaccine.
What does it do?
Now this is a good counter argument.
I don't care.
So we are going to.
It's a
so-
preservative.
So we
I'm
are now
not-
going to have to.
I don't know and I
educate-
don't care.
we're gonna have to
I will
educate them
I will
on what the
say
ingredient
Does he
okay.
know what it
dangerous
what it
does.
does?
It's
also not elemental
It's a preservative.
I will say we're pausing a lot, but so much has stacked up in the past 3 or 4 minutes of Professor Dave and the other guy, the Afro guy, just like decimating their arguments, making them look foolish, making them look like they don't know what they're talking about, pointing out that they're like, it is okay, by the way, like I said earlier, it is okay for them to shift the goal if there's a concession on a point. That's okay. That's why it's not a big deal, because they will just concede, oh, I was wrong when I spoke this way. Let me just move to the stronger point. It's okay to move from goal to goal as long as you're getting a conclusion to one goal at a time, as long as you're getting concessions on one goal at a time. Where was I going with that? But the audience picks up on this. If the person has to keep retreating, keep shifting goals, keep moving to new points, and each one gets knocked down, it does pile up in people's minds, and it starts to make the other side look bad. So right now, Dave and the Afro dude are dumpstering them because they keep pointing out, like, no, you're wrong on this. No, what is the definition of that? No, you're wrong on that. Let me help you out here. Like, right now, the other team looks absolutely, and this is super early on in the debate, the other team looks incredibly fucking foolish right now.
No, it's a preservative.
Let's let Steve get in here. Steve, you want to add something?
No, yeah, it's just that he's just talking about one of the ingredients. It's not just the adjuvants. It's anything that's in the vaccine that is getting injected.
Yeah, thimerosol's not an adjuvant again, by the way.
Aluminum, for
And you might be thinking again, kind of on this point, like, okay, yeah, they misspoke, but really they're talking about ingredients. Yes, you are right. In a vacuum, if that was the only time they made a blunder like that, you could write that off. You could go, okay, that is a, hold on a second. Cat dropped something on the floor. Had to clean it up. Yeah. So I mean, Dave and the other dude, they're constantly showing like, oh, you're wrong on this. Oh, you made another technical error there. Oh, you're misspeaking here. You're misspeaking. When it piles up like that, it starts to make you look like you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and if you only memorize like little bits and pieces of information, which is the case. A lot of times with these conspiracy theorists, their conspiracies work by going down a deeper rabbit hole of cherry-picked information. That's super niche, super specific, but it is cherry-picked. And if the other people know the broader information surrounding that cherry-picked information, when they start to point it out and start to probe you and ask you the right questions, you as a conspiracy theorist, like, you can be made to look like an absolute fucking moron and fool. And it's just most of the time, most people don't know all the bullshit rabbit hole information that these conspiracy theorists go into, which includes stuff like this topic.
For example, can get into you through injection.
Is that it?
The average person is not going to know what an adjuvant is, and that's why the average person is not going to be able to call it out. But notice, like, these guys know what it actually is. They know that this is the kind of terminology that these conspiracists use. And look at these conspiracists are using these terms, adjuvant, because they brought it up, by the way. We can go back and watch it. They brought it up. They don't even know what it technically means. Why is that? Because they are in an ecosystem that are feeding like these talking points, okay? I run into these people all the time. I guarantee it. There's something going on there. It's like bot farms, it's the Republican Party's media ecosystem, or it's like the Russian and the Chinese. But there are narratives that just get pushed. And they get pushed in such a way that make the person who's feeding into them think that they're learning niche, obscure, like sage information. They're becoming like this wise man in society or whatever. So people like this, they'll come across like curated medical information that will hone in on these words like adjuvant that the rest of the general population hasn't heard of before, because they want to seed that idea, that word, that concept into your mind so that you can repeat it. You become a single booster for that idea, right? And it bamboozles the population, because what the fuck is an adjuvant? But these guys know what it is, and you should, when you run into words you don't know, look it up. But these guys do know what it is, so they're able to call it out, and immediately these conspiracy theorists, who look like they know a lot more than the general population, immediately show that even their knowledge of the subject is surface level. And the surface that they're touching upon, and that broader volume of knowledge, the surface that they've arrived upon, that they're touching, is all the surface areas that specifically confirm the story, the narrative that they want to spin. Everything else about vaccines and biology, I guarantee they don't know jack fucking shit.
Didn't add more?
Hang on, we'll get to aluminum, but let's stay on mercury. Did autism go up after 2001 when it was taken out of the childhood vaccines? Yes. So would you expect autism to go down if an ingredient that causes autism got out of vaccines?
The thing that causes autism isn't in there anymore. What do you expect is going to happen?
It doesn't quite work that way because
How does it
while
work?
they're-
How do you know?
Do you know what else happened after they took
you're asking-
mercury out of
you're asking
vaccines?
for-
The number of vaccines continued to explode.
Not really.
And
Oh,
what's
really?
no, not by
really,
that
no.
much.
How many?
But also, what's in them? We're still looking for the ingredient, right? You don't know what they do,
I
but
don't care about the you guys. We're talking about the association between vaccines and autism.
Yes.
You
There's-
guys are asking for mechanisms.
There's a lot debate rhetorically that's going on here. I'm surprised. I didn't know that this Dave and this other dude were good debaters, but there's a lot going on here. To have the confidence, and a lot of people don't do this these days, to when somebody says something that you know is untrue. And Dave and the other guy, they know, I guarantee you, is from what they're talking about so far, they've done a good amount of research into this topic. They know the stats on like the prevalence of these things. So when the other team says like, oh, there's this stat, and they just say, no, that's not true. You know that they're going to be able to, cite the actual numbers, the actual data on this. They look authoritative, and they're illustrating to the public too, the people watching, that these guys who repeat this shit, they just literally make shit up because they know the average person is not diving into and looking into this information. They're getting these guys are getting fucking dumpstered right now. Warming up some chicken nuggies, some tendies. No, I'm just kidding. Some wings, leftover wings from earlier.
I will tell you the associations between vaccines and autism. You want
And
to do that?
but you mentioned mercury, and I'm asking for a mechanism there, and you're not able to. You're not able to do that. So we can move on.
No.
There's gotta be a compound that does it, right?
I'll give you a mechanism, aluminum.
I was criticizing him earlier for stalling on the mercury point, but the reason that he stalled on it is actually really good, which is to say, he's not letting him get away with it. And a lot of times we do this in debate with right-wingers, like we want to keep the conversation going, we want to be civil, so we just kind of move on, like, oh, okay, like you're going to stay here and basically appeal to incredulity because you just don't want to give up the argument, even though like you've been demonstrated to be wrong on this. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. He wanted to make sure, like, hey, before we move on, I just want to make sure that everybody knows you have not established, this is super fundamental, okay? Whether or not we could talk about like the empirical results of taking mercury out of vaccines, which we did, we talked about that, and we, adjudicated that point. But also, I just want to point out, even beyond looking at empirically what happened, debunk what you thought was supposed to happen. But number two, I just want to remind everybody, you never establish any mechanism for mercury causing autism. You made that shit up. That association that you riled the whole public up on, that we had to wait to get do research and studies to debunk because you guys kept bringing up this dumb shit, you never established a mechanism for it. So all you're doing is you are distracting and wasting society's resources on bullshit that you guys are making up. That's an important point to bring up. And I'm glad someone's doing it, because people get they get away with it. Also, why they're not prepared to answer these questions, because they're not used to being put on the spot like that.
So
Explain. Are you familiar with Chris Exley?
Yes.
Okay. So he's like the world expert on
He's not.
toxicology.
He's not.
Oh, he's not. Then who is?
There is no single world expert in toxicology.
Okay, well, so
you like to paint this caricature. You like to paint this caricature of science. There is no one single expert.
Years.
So?
How? So who has been doing it for longer than 36 years?
He's been producing slop for 46 years.
Okay. So he's been doing it for 36 years. There's nobody doing more research on that, and he finds kids like a 12-year-old with aluminum concentration in their brain that is off the charts, never seen before, and the kid is autistic.
Great. So let's start with. I'm assuming you're talking first about the 2017 X.
Wow. What even to say? I mean, there's a lot that happened there. So, hold on, let me go back here. Just remind myself.
Are you familiar with Chris Exley?
Yes.
Okay. So he's like the world.
This is what I want to point out. This is really subtle, but the right in recent years has been grooming all these personalities. They've turned politics into pop culture, personalities, and comedy. One of the things that they do is they always like to cite characters, name dropping, like in rap music, Have you heard of John Marshall Penningworth the fourth? Oh no, I haven't heard of him before. He had 37 years in the field of blah blah blah. He served on the board of this and blah blah blah. Anecdotes, stories, emotional language, appeal to authority. Oh, this guy had like all these years in the field and everything. Oh, okay. Does that mean that he's like the master, the expert? Who decided that? Okay, but he's been a doctor for 57 years. Okay, but that doesn't mean that you're the world renowned person on the subject. Why do you even feel the need to create characters like that to sell to the public? It's because it's part of a story. It's part of a narrative, and it appeals to like the imagination of people that science is like Albert Einstein or Nikola Tesla. It's always like these specific figures who are like rock stars in their field, and that happens sometimes. But a lot of science is just done by people who aren't gigantic rock stars in the field. They're just kind of regular people pushing the ball a little bit forward over time. And this guy did a really good job. I think it's Dan Wilson did a really good job diffusing that by not caving like a lot of people do and just accepting this caricature, this memorial veneration to like build up a story in order to launder that story as a premise to further conclusions. He just stops it right in its tracks and says, oh, he served 34 years on the board of blah, blah, blah. So, is there a specific point that this person made that you want to cite, that you want to reference? Is there a specific mechanism you want to point to? Is there a specific piece of science you want to point to that he brought up? Or are you just name dropping to try to make it seem like you have a stronger argument than you do?
World expert on
He's not.
toxicology.
He's not.
Oh, he's not. Then who is?
There is no single world expert in toxicology.
Okay, well, so
you
he's
like
one-
to
one of them.
paint this
So he's one of-
caricature.
he's one
You
of
like
the
to paint this
experts in the world.
caricature of
He's been-
science.
He's been doing
There
it
is
for
no one single
36
expert.
years.
So?
How? So who has been doing it for longer
he's
than
been-
36 years?
He's been producing slop for 46 years.
Ah, okay. So he's been doing it for 36 years. There's nobody doing more research on that, and he finds kids like a 12-year-old with aluminum
All right. Yeah.
concentration
Mm-hmm.
in their brain that is off the charts, never seen before, and the kid is autistic.
Great. So let's start with. I'm assuming you're talking first about the 2017 Exley paper, right?
Yes.
Okay. So did you look at the numbers there, in his table of aluminum measurements?
Of course he didn't. Of course he didn't. This might sound crazy to you. When you argue with some of these people that seemingly on the surface are citing like the most in-depth research or whatever on the topic, a lot of them only know specific nuggets from that information because it's been fed to them by their media ecosystem. It really genuinely is that surface level, and it's all about shifting the focus. It's all about keeping the focus of the public where you want it to. Because if you are citing studies and you are citing specific little stats and stuff that you've taken out of context, the rest of the public hasn't read every single one of these studies that you're citing, so they're not going to be able to call it out. You keep the focus of the study where you have knowledge of it, and no one else is going to bring up parts of the story, the study that you haven't engaged with, that you haven't read before. They rely on that.
Want to save $100 on junk removal? 1-800-GOT-JUNK helped us clean out our garage when our camper renovation.
No.
You didn't look at
Hang
them?
on. You didn't look at the
They're
numbers?
off the charts, but you didn't look at the numbers.
There's a lot of stuff.
Of course he didn't.
Steve, you
Of course he didn't. There's a lot of stuff. Here's the thing. He's right about that. In science, there's fuck tons of studies and shit put out every year. Most of it's fucking useless. Most of it's irrelevant. That's not because it's bad. That's not because research is bad. That's just the nature of a world where you have thousands and thousands of scientists doing all kinds of research, and you have to explore around, and you don't know what's going to be successful or not, because if you knew that, you wouldn't have the issue in the first place of needing to experiment and search around for the information. You wouldn't need to do that. But we have to do that endeavor. We have to sink money into sometimes chasing dead ends or loose ends because we don't know which thread we pull on is going to give us the answer that we're looking for. So that's true. But his whole thing is this anti-vax narrative, and he is citing this study. These aren't random studies. These aren't studies unrelated to the field that he's focused in. This is his bread and butter. This is something that he's made money encouraging the community, the public at large on, and he hasn't even bothered to read his own study that he cites. That is absolutely unacceptable, and I think it reveals that this guy, just off of this one thing alone, that this guy is an absolute fucking hack grifter that is just peddling this information out there because he knows there's an audience for it.
Your source that you provided for this debate,
Yes.
and you don't know anything about the data in it?
Do you want to? Here, I'll give you some quotes from Chris Exley.
It's okay.
Since you don't know the paper that you brought, we can teach you what's in the paper. The numbers are all fucking over the place.
Yeah.
There's no clear trend. And second of all, there's absolutely no way to mechanistically and causally link that to anything. Even if the data was good, how do you rule out the idea that there's a neurological condition that just makes the brain not clear aluminum as well, right? There's no way to mechanistically link that to a causative agent of autism.
So Chris Exley has published over 200 peer-reviewed papers
Data.
on aluminum.
Let's get to the data.
He's published over 200.
See what I mean? They're doing it again. And they do this all the time. You'll see it. Once I point out to you, you'll see it. This person has 5 books. This person has 50 years. This person has, went to this school and that school. Oh, this person published 50 papers. Oh, okay. They sound like they're real expert on that. You should be able to tell me what expert thing that they said that actually makes this point that you're trying to make instead of just name dropping them. And the fact that you can't tells me, number one, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Number two, the whatever point you think this person made about the topic probably wasn't that strong. Probably wasn't that defensible.
Peer-reviewed papers.
Many of which are retracted.
What he says is, I did not see such high aluminum content in the brains of Alzheimer's patient. This was extraordinary. These are some of the highest values ever measured in human brain tissue. Now, go ahead and dispute that. Tell me your source for someone who has higher levels of aluminum than what he's measured.
I'll do you better. So let's go to that table that you didn't read. So let me read off some of the measurements that he got of aluminum in a child's brain. Do you know what a technical replicate of an experiment is?
Sorry,
A technical replicate.
Is this science class?
He doesn't know, and the other guy doesn't know either. Let me just put this out there. Just be honest with you. I hate people like this. I hate them. I think that they're some of the worst fucking people in the entire world. I think they're the sleaziest, most disgusting, vile, subhuman, filthy fucking pieces of shit in all of society. These guys, they know that they're liars. They know that they're grifters. They know that they're making money off of misleading their audience. They don't give a fuck about this information. They sell themselves as experts. They sell themselves on this ego. They inflate their record and their legacy and everything. But they're fucking liars and grifters.
Apparently it needs to be, because you guys don't even read the studies that you bring.
I'm sorry, Pierre.
I think
Let me.
Well,
Is it nitpicky, or are we proving that you have no
make a-
fucking idea what you're talking about?
Let me just make.
It's
Okay,
the
let's
source
recap.
you brought.
Hang on. Let's recap for a bit. Pierre brought up mercury.
No, I talked about autism. You are still sticking.
You need a causative agent. and you don't have
I'm
it.
recapping here.
You said mercury. You said
yeah.
aluminum.
This is descending into nonsense.
so
It's descending into us showing
we
that
have,
you have no
uh,
idea what you're talking about.
Here, let's.
you guys,
okay.
let's recap the time
Look,
here.
but we do need to finish this real quick, because
Yeah.
we didn't bring up the point that
Yeah, well,
that it didn't.
It's descending into nonsense. Why? Why? Why is it descending into? It's not. This guy's just saying stuff. He's like trying to obscure, tell the audience what happened there. This guy got called out. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. This other guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about either. They don't know how to read a study. They've never read a study before. They didn't read the studies that they're citing. They're absolute fucking hack pieces of shit.
Parse the study. There was no data on whether the patients were vaccinated or unvaccinated. The study was shit. You finished that because you read it better than I did.
Sure. So, I mean, first of all, Pierre, I understand you're getting upset, but I think it's reasonable to expect you to know certain things about the topics you claim to know better than the world's leading experts on.
Can I talk
So-
about this?
yeah, let's let Pierre get in. Yeah.
So
100%.
this request for mechanisms is one of the oldest tricks in the book that's perpetrated by the academics, okay?
It's not a trick. It's literally, do you have any evidence for this shit? Not, oh, my fucking feelings, and oh, I have a political agenda to push.
So this is what they do. When they see associations that they cannot dispel, they do one of a few things. And let's talk about the Institute of Medicine, because you guys actually put that in as a reference. Do you guys know the history of the Institute of Medicine, what it is? So I can ask you these little nitpicky questions.
Yeah,
so what is the Institute of Medicine?
It's an independent body of experts.
Oh, it is? Okay. How do they get funded?
Not aware.
What?
Not aware.
You're not aware? Okay.
You're not aware, but you rely on their.
Right, so-
you rely
so-
on what
so
they
let me-
say.
let me school you a
You
little
guys
bit.
supplied IOM
So
data.
the-
You don't even know how
the
to fund it.
sources
So I care more about the
information that
integrity
you're
of data
relying
than
on
I
is
do
the
about the
Institute of
funding
Medicine.
sources. But we can get the funding sources if you want.
The Institute of Medicine is a private organization funded by industry and government.
Okay.
They have produced numbers of reports on various toxins plaguing our society, beginning with Agent Orange. Here we are, 40 years later, numbers of reports of Agent Orange. Each time they say insufficient data. Finally, in 2018, they said, you know what, we need studies on veterans, 30 years later, okay? They were investigated by a congressional committee and
Here we go. Irrelevant, name drop, anecdotal story. We don't need to go to these organizations and go, oh, this organization is conspiracy and they did some bad things in the past. To the other guy's point, Dan Wilson, we don't need all these stories. We don't need the credibility and name drop people and talk, oh, I have this person on my team who spent 30 years and oh, I have this organization. We could just look at what are the mechanisms? What does the data say? Is it solid data? Is it solid science, solid mechanisms or not? There's a reason why these guys avoid that conversation entirely, and it's all just narrative spinning, narrative spinning. Here's a conspiracy. Here's this person, this at this date, at this time, in this location. Like, oh, what does the actual math say? What does the actual science say? What do the actual stats say? Oh no, but I want to talk about this story about this person one time, and there's a nefarious like undercover espionage situation going on. Oh, that sounds salacious and interesting, but it's not data.
found that they manipulated and misled the public. That's just on Agent Orange. They've gone on over the next few decades to address a number of toxins for which the government would be having to pay out massive compensation claims, including Gulf War syndrome, the anthrax vaccine, where veterans chronically ill, lives destroyed from Gulf War syndrome, they tested for squalene, an ingredient in the anthrax vaccine. 95% of those ill had squalene antibiotics. Anyone healthy had none. Okay, so let me finish. I'm finishing my point here. So you have Gulf War, you have anthrax, you have Agent Orange. Nothing to see here. Asbestos in baby powder, baby food, nothing to see here.
This thing also annoys me. Nothing to see here. Who is saying that? Who's saying that? Seriously, whenever they say this, ask them who is saying that. Because I don't think anyone's saying, oh, there aren't mistakes with technology in the past, or aren't, medicines or vaccines in the past that don't work out the way that they should. Or there weren't, corrupt officials and people, bad people. Yeah, of course. Okay. Who is saying that you can't question it or that there's nothing to see there? Like, the whole reason that we know about these stories is because these were reported on. We all know about them. We didn't say there's nothing to see there. We're just saying you don't have to, turn your brain into mush because you heard about, oh, this organization did this bad thing in the past. Oh, okay. Well, I guess we throw out all of medicine then. That sounds reasonable to you? Because that's implicitly the argument that this guy's running with. He's not saying it that way, but that's what this whole point of this narrative is all about.
Autism. We don't know. We don't have the evidence to say yes or no.
Yeah.
There's a pattern. This is an organization that gets hired by industry and government to literally kick the can down the road. And even when they find an association, they do what you guys do.
Yeah.
Elaborate the mechanisms. Show me the mechanisms.
You
It's
know
not my
where this
job to show you the
conspiracy- I
mechanisms.
think-
My job is to show you that they will kill and injure people and make them ill.
Where this conspiracy falls apart is that you're relying on the American government, ignoring the fact that there are hundreds of other countries that also do science. So if you can't provide any studies
That's a
from
really
other
good
nations
point.
that aren't under the tyrannical American government that can produce any kind of data to establish these connections, then what are we even doing here, right?
And I'd like to add on this point about mechanisms. When we ask for mechanisms, we expect an answer. And I don't know is a fine answer because scientists.
Yes, super, super based. Okay? You should have the balls to say this and demand this. Right? Oh, I can't believe you guys are taking the argument there. That's unfair. No. It is fair, and I am asking you that, and I'm going to hold you to that. I'm not sorry for it. I don't care that it hurts your feelings that I'm calling you out and your bullshit. Like, the whole world needs to know that you're full of shit. I don't feel bad for you. Fuck you.
We don't expect a mechanism in every single case. There are plenty of things where we know there are known associations, but no known nailed down mechanism. So to be mad that we're asking for a mechanism is a little weird. But if we want to get back to aluminum, which is the topic that you guys wanted to talk about, we can do that.
Well, no. You guys wanted to talk about it because you asked for a mechanism. I want to talk about the Verstraeten study.
You get a vaccine.
I want to talk about the
you
William
vaccine
Thompson
your child,
study.
and then the child falls into dense, life-altering, nonverbal autism for the rest of their life, either beginning that day or the next day.
That's
There's
not a
your
mechanism.
Which has happened
That's
zero
not a
times.
mechanism.
So can we talk
You're
about
relying
that?
on bullshit anecdotal evidence.
can we
You have
talk-
no studies to support that whatsoever.
Wait, can we talk about the Verstraeten study?
The what?
The Verstraeten study. This is the VSD study. It's done in 1999 by CDC epidemiologist Thomas Verstraeten. You know what he found? 11 risk ratio for thimerosal and autism. So what did they do? They had a secret meeting to go
Simpsonwood?
at Simpsonwood, right, to talk about how do we massage this? How do we tell the public?
You may or may not be able to tell from this, but this is a story that he tells all the time. You can tell like there's a particular cadence to it. There's certain like elements he's painting a picture for you and everything. And I'm getting, okay, body language, armchair psychology. I'm getting the idea that Dave and Dan are on to what he's doing, and they've heard this stupid story before, and they're immediately going to fucking destroy it in a second here.
And there were some quotes. It's a huge transcript, but out of that transcript, there are some choice quotes. Things like, wow, linear relationship, dose-response relationship. You increase the dose, the association increases. People were aware of that, and they talked about, oh shit, we're going to be in huge legal trouble.
Yeah.
How are we going to message this to the public?
It's a cute story, but again, thimerosal was taken out of the MMR vaccine in 2001.
Wait a minute,
Did autism go down?
But wait a second. He found the association.
So
You
did-
guys asked
so-
for
so-
how do you
no.
get an 11-to-1 risk ratio on something where there's no the cause and effect?
So what exactly
why
was?
did they have that offsite meeting?
Good. I'm glad Dan is, again, not cucking out, not doing the thing that journalists today do. It's like, oh, I feel bad for the right. I'm going to let him move on to another point. No. Sir, we didn't ask for an association. We didn't ask for a risk ratio. We asked you for the mechanism. And you want to bamboozle the general public that, oh, you're somehow answering that question. No, you did not. We asked for a mechanism. You don't have a mechanism.
Meeting to talk about it. Why did they need to do that if it's just a
Again,
coincidence?
very cute stories, but we're looking for data.
Yeah. So
That is
So
data.
there-
A risk
there-
ratio
No, you're
to-
spinning a
Do you know what the-
conspiratorial
do you know what the
narrative.
risk
Steve, slow down.
ratio is?
All right, let
Yes.
Dan
Yes.
respond to the bullshit
Hang
that you
on.
said.
Yes.
You know what the risk ratio is for if you smoke a pack a day and lung cancer? Do you know what the risk ratio of that is? It's a well-known association. Risk ratio is 10-to-1. This was 11-to-1.
So what kind of confounders did they control for in that experiment that you're talking about?
Why are you trying to scrutinize the bullshit?
That's a very important.
Oh my God. This is the quintessential debate. This is how every single left-wing, liberal, whatever fucking debate should go with the right from now on. Everything the right says is a narrative. Everything they say is utter fucking horseshit, bullshit stories and just nonsense that they've gotten away with because the media's too cucked to let them slide by with it for their fucking fillings, to entertain their game. Do not play their game. Just call it out, point it out, and, grind it down like a fucking rock. Grind that shit down to the fucking core if you have to.
research that we
point.
try
So
to
do
use.
you know?
What kind of confounder, Dan, causes an 11-to-1 odds ratio?
So if I were to,
what's the confounder on that one?
Steve, do you know what ascertainment bias is?
Yes, I do.
So if I were to survey a room full of crotchety old men on, let's say, whether or not they have type 2 diabetes, and then survey a room full of soccer players on the same question,
Yeah,
you think that there would be a huge risk ratio difference there?
of course. But what they did is they used
Why?
They used over 100,000 people in the VSD database. They were trying to find out. The whole mission for Verstraeten was to go and get the data to do the study to discredit this whole association. Now, Verstraeten is very skilled in the art of manipulating numbers in order to make the signal go away. And so he went through 5 rounds. It took him 4 years, Dan, to make the signal go away. And he has there's a famous email he sent off saying, I can't make the signal go away.
Yeah,
the
that's
title,
a,
the subject
it's a
line
cute
was,
story.
"It won't go away."
It's a cute story, yeah, I know.
Okay.
See how
So
everything
it
relies on
goes away.
anecdotal evidence.
The particulars of this specific study, it does seem like I try to do a little bit of reading here. I think I'd have to dive into this more, and I get the sense that they don't know fully about the study either. But I don't trust these guys. These guys are full of shit. And even the little amount of scrutinizing he did of the study, it leads me to believe, like, obviously they're probably misrepresenting some things in the study or overselling it, but they don't have the familiarity with the particular study, I think, to call it out at this point in time.
For you. Why isn't there a study from some other country that you can point to that's not under the tyrannical American government that reproduces what you're
So
talking
Dave and
about?
Dan,
it turns
you
out...
guys, 2 seconds, 2 seconds. Dave and Dan, you guys have your final thoughts on this particular topic, and then
There is one very important
Steve and
point.
Pierre get the last word on this topic.
Okay, there's one very important point that we didn't bring up, and that's diagnostic criteria. And I would ask you guys, do you have any idea how autism is diagnosed and how that has changed in the past 30 to 40
Yes,
years?
and it's changed quite significantly.
Yeah, how so? Like, how?
Because they want to make the signal go away, so they
No.
blocked it.
How does a professional in the field diagnose autism, and how has that changed? It's not about whatever data you're trying to talk about.
This is not the topic.
When was autism spectrum disorder added to the DSM? When was autism spectrum disorder added to the
There are
DSM?
various levels of the DSM. It changed over time.
When was autism spectrum disorder added to the DSM?
What, DSM-1?
Pierre, do you know you were in the medical field? Do you know? Do you know you were in the medical field?
1994. 1994.
Okay.
So how do you imagine that impacted?
Into the mic there, Pierre.
Make
Just-
the argument, and then I'll be able to respond.
It's-
Instead, you're asking me little questions. I'm not going to do this. This is just silly.
You're not gonna talk about one of the most
Make the
important
argument.
aspects of
You're
this.
not making an argument. You're asking me random.
It's not a random question. You're saying
Tell me
autism
why it's
rises
not random.
correlated
Here.
with vaccines,
Tell me why
and
it's
I'm
not
telling
random.
you that it's just diagnoses.
Okay.
Because prior to these diagnostic criteria, level 1 and 2 autistic children were not getting diagnosed, and now they are. Do you know I know this? Because I have an autistic son. Okay?
So I knew that the argument would eventually come to here. This is something, and again, this comes down to controlling the Overton window, controlling the soil, controlling the battlefield that we exist on, controlling the body politic, what the general public is focused on. We have some okay data when it comes to autism. It's not, it's not the best. We don't have all the questions answered, but we know more about it than I think the general public knows at this point, and more than the anti-vax, vaccines cause autism crowd educate their audience. I think at this point there is a general understanding that yes, there is more autism being diagnosed because the diagnostic criteria for autism has changed over time, and we're simply just catching it more than we used to in the past. So that accounts for some of it. And I'm not even sure we know what percentage of the increase in autism is from that. But if you don't know that, if you're not going to talk about that, you're not really being honest about the conversation.
So I know about how this is diagnosed.
And I'll complete these thoughts. Pierre wants us to just tell him the facts instead of quiz him
He
on
just
what he
wants
should
us
know.
to steamroll
So
everything.
let me explain. So we know that autism is genetic. 70 to 80%
There you go.
of
See, like, what percentage of the population here knows that we've learned that? Does the Republican Party talk about this? Nope. Does the media talk about it? Nope. Because the media just responds to whatever the Republican Party is telling them. Why didn't the media just report this shit and talk about it? Why don't they invite panelists on to talk about stuff like this? Instead, they let themselves get led around by the Republican Party.
of autism cases are genetic. That has
Mountain
been-
of data versus bullshit.
So there are several genome-wide association studies showing that autism is genetic. There are several twin and familial studies showing that genetics is an extremely strong component. Also, there is data looking at rates. There is data looking at rates of non-profound autism versus profound autism in the past 16 years. It has been shown convincingly that the lion's share of the increase in autism that RFK says is an epidemic is due to non-profound autism cases that are being caught by the expanded diagnostic criteria.
Which were not diagnosed in the past.
Doctors are not looking at kids for 10 seconds and looking for an autism diagnosis because they're flapping their hands or being nonverbal. It's expanded. It's much more broad than that. People can be functional and autistic. That was not recognized 20 years ago.
Okay, final thoughts on the topic by Pierre and Steve.
All right, let me say 3 things about this. Kennedy, RFK Jr. Talks very often about this. You know, when he was growing up, never saw an autistic kid. Today, he still can't find an autistic person of his age. So,
I mean, it's another story, right? Another interesting story. Wow, congratulations, you could tell a story. What data is this? Oh, here's another famous person, RFK Jr. Here's a story that RFK Jr. tells about. Who cares?
it's not the diagnostic criteria that has changed. So that's.
But it has. What are you talking about? The diagnostic criteria has changed. What do you mean? And that tells you why you would have less old people who are diagnosed with autism, because they didn't diagnose for it when they were kids, bro. What the fuck?
Definitely knows autistic people his age.
The second thing is there has never been a before and after study looking at the timing.
If they had diagnoses, diagnostic criteria for autism back in the day, like this guy would have been diagnosed with it. You know what I mean?
For rapid.
Imagine trying to hang out with this guy. Imagine the weird rambles that he would go down as he talks to you with this haircut. You know he would have been diagnosed back in the day.
Onset autism. About 25% of the cases of autism, plus or minus, happen very rapidly within a week. Did you know that?
Within a week? What do you mean by that? What does that even mean? What the fuck does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, he just says stuff like this, and all the time, every time, it's like the stats that they're misleading with it. They're not giving the full story. They say stuff like this, and it's like, what do you mean when you say after, what do you say, after 2 weeks, after a week? The autism gets worse? What does that mean? Like, do you go like from -5 autism to like +10 autism? Like, do you go up 5 in the autism points? Like, what does that mean?
Every single case that we can find, at least 80% of those cases happen within a week after a vaccine. 20% happen a week before the vaccine.
Okay. Well, he's making a more specific claim here. Okay, I give him credit for that. 80% of case. Wait, okay. Where does he get that from? Is there a study that he's pointing to for this? 80% of. Wait a second. Where do you even pull the data from this from? How would you find this out? Because you have all these autistic people. Okay, hold on. 80% of autistic people get it after a vaccine. The claim that cause has been thoroughly, okay, no credit for fraudulent origin. Yeah, I don't know what data he's citing. And the annoying thing is these people lie so much and they mislead so much and they tell so many narratives. There's a question of like, okay, is there even any data whatsoever, or is he just telling a story and exaggerating? Is it data that he's misleading about, but it's obscure data because he fished around until he found the one study that seemed to say what he wants it to say? Like, it's just such a waste of, these people waste everybody's fucking time.
So if it's not related to the vaccine, then why are 80% of those cases happening after a
what
vaccine
cases?
rather than right the week before? Nobody's
80% of what cases? What is he talking about? Like, what is this sample from? What studies he
been
saying?
able to explain that. Nobody in the world has ever done that study. And they
Well, maybe they haven't done that study because that sounds nefarious, but maybe they haven't done that study because whatever you're citing, I don't think anyone's aware of it. I can't find that information. I didn't look that hard, but also you're not citing anything, so maybe no one's done that study because it sounds like like you're throwing darts at a board, and we don't have time to study every random fucking idea that people come up with that doesn't have any reason for us to spend the resources in it. You know, and if you want to look into that, like, okay, cool, like maybe we can look into that, but like you're spinning it as if it's a conspiracy, like they're trying to hide something. Like I don't think anyone's aware of what you're talking about.
never will. because they don't want to know the truth. And that's the most important thing
So
that
cute.
you should know about this. And the third
Narrative, emotional language. They're hiding it from you. They don't want the people will rise up. We will take to the streets. Freedom. Like it's just they're lying to us. We'll find out the real truth and the corruption and the politicians and all the bad people, but we will know. Wow, congratulations.
thing is that when William Thompson, who led the CDC study on autism and linking it with vaccines, and they found a link, you know what happened? His bosses told him, destroy.
You know what really causes autism is listening to people like this. I lose brain cells. I'm a little bit tired, to be honest with you. You probably tell in my voice, but like, oh my God, it's hard to keep up with this nonsense.
Destroy that data. So it will never see the light of day. And let's publish the paper as if we had never seen that link.
Stories and lies, data.
This is
Why don't they do those studies? They're doctors, they got money, they could fund it if they want. Like, why don't they do that study?
how corrupt the CDC has been. Thompson was called to testify in front of Congress. He was subpoenaed to.
All right, and by the way, I mean, the thing is we hold these people to such a low bar, but the reality is that anyone else doing this would be slimy and like scumbaggish. This is supposed to be his closing remarks, and he's just gish galloped like 5 new arguments that he didn't bring up during the regular part. Great, like you're not even letting the other side respond back to your points. You waited to the very end to your closing remarks to just vomit out all these extra arguments.
To answer.
With basically a captive audience because no one can challenge him now on these points because they're going to move on.
Questions. He was deposed under oath. You know what happened to that deposition? It's sealed, so nobody will ever be able to see it.
CDC doesn't run Sweden.
Transparency. That is hiding the data from the American public.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Pierre, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sensing a really difference in perspective on the world, and I'll just explain mine, and it'll explain how the rest of this evening is going to go. What happened to me and what transformed me was discovery of the massive influence of money in the pharmaceutical industry in almost every institution and aspect of science. A scope and a scale I never knew, and I was a practicing physician for 20 years before I left in disgust. By the way, you know who else left in disgust in the way I did? Editors of the highest impact medical journals in the world over the last 20 years have all left. One of them, Marsha Angel, wrote a book.
What does that mean? Again, these casual statements that we don't even think about. What does something like that mean? The biggest names of medical, or like who? All of them? A handful here and there? Are these all actually big name people? Like who? You know? Oh my God, it's just so annoying because it just takes so much time to deal with the nonsense these people peddle out.
About how the pharmaceutical industry has literally taken over all of medicine. And I'll give you the 2-minute primer.
What does that mean? What does it mean? The pharmaceutical industry has taken over medicine. The drug industry has taken over the drug industry. Well, wow. You really said something there. Congratulations. What an insightful thing to say.
It starts at the top, $1 trillion industry named pharma. The cap.
But it sounds nefarious, right? It sounds nefarious when he puts it that way, but essentially, the drug industry has taken over the drug industry. No shit. No fucking shit. That doesn't even mean, by the way, that the drug industry is squeaky clean. But what are you talking about?
Captains below. By the way, that's a criminal syndicate. They are now up to $65 billion in the last 20 years, no, $126 billion in the last 20 years in criminal and civil penalties, which is more than double the rest of the industries combined. Under them sit the
60% isn't... Again, the sleaziness of this, gish galloping all these arguments at the end. God damn it. What percent of the economy is healthcare? 17%. And what did he say?
syndicate. They are now up to $65 billion in the last 20 years, no, $126 billion in the last 20 years in criminal and civil penalties, which is more than double the rest of the industries combined.
Okay. Wait, the other industries combined? hold on, hold on. I don't know. I don't even want to look at it. I feel like it's a waste of time, but okay.
Under them sit the medical journals, high profit margins. Most of it comes from pharma. Almost all of it comes from pharma. You have agencies which are fully captured in ways like CDC Foundation, FDA is a revolving door, and NIH is through royalties. Then you have the professional societies. Don't even get me started on those. Those are bought and paid for. Then you have the researchers whose careers never go anywhere if they publish inconvenient science. Then you have Congress. In 2021, $666,000 per member of Congress, okay? Then you have the Little Institute of Medicine, who's the little prostitute hitman.
It's all like a big conspiracy story. It can't just be like, oh, you have these organizations, they have some pros and cons, they have some inefficiencies, they've had some corruption in the past, they do good things, they do bad things. It's like, oh, everybody's out to get you, every organization and industry and everything that we can get information from is all bad. Okay, but like back to like Dave and the other dude's point, we can just look at the data. We can just look at the information. You don't need to make it about personalities. You don't need to make it about this whole story and everybody's out to get you. We could just look at what does the data actually say.
For all of science. These guys.
By the way, this is designed to distract you from that fundamental question. It's to distract you with this long fucking diatribe conspiracy that you waste time debating. This conspiracy theory, rather than just getting down to like the nitty gritty of, well, what does the data and the mechanisms and the science say?
Guys are going to be yelling about these studies with hundreds of thousands of people in and how it definitively shows no proof, and there's no evidence that there's autism. And where are the studies showing people falling in left MMR? They have no idea of the immensely rigid and tight control of what appears in journals. They do not know. They are being fed propaganda, facts.
Well, it doesn't have to appear in a journal or whatever. Like, if you have information to the contrary, you can publish it anywhere. You can publish it independently. You can publish it on your thing. You guys make a career talking about this stuff. You can publish it if you want to. That information isn't out there because you're full of shit and it's just a story. The reason why you suck and your ideas suck and they get destroyed by science, every other year, isn't because there's a conspiracy out to get you. It's because your ideas fucking suck and you can't accept it.
Single paper is wrong
and then
because
they go out to their
pharma.
little podcasters and see how wrong these guys are? They don't know how to fake.
Does the
This
CDC
paper
control
says
Sweden?
So. The New England Journal of Medicine says so.
Chill.
And so this is why it's very difficult to debate because the science that I'm bringing forth is that it's censored.
How long? The moderation here is just not doing a good job. This isn't a closing statement. This is him rattling off a gish gallop of like 5 or 6 new arguments. Just shotgunning him out there. This is the entire Republican right-wing strategy at the moment. Let me let you in on a little secret. It's for them to just vomit out endlessly nonstop conspiracies, niche information, niche little narratives, and to just constantly create new ones, spit new ones out there, and just overwhelm everybody with their narratives. That's what it is, because it takes longer to debunk them than it does to just vomit them out.
And what they're bringing forth is that which is propagandized. And so if they don't recognize the validity of many data sources, and especially they seem particularly unconcerned when we are revealing scientists who are literally suppressing and having to whistleblow data they've been taught to manipulate and hide, like Thompson. The CDC was sitting on data showing massive rates of autism in Black and African American children. And you know what? You know who his boss was at the time? CDC director. She left to head Merck's vaccine division after she left and got him to do it. So I don't know what world they live in, not the world I do.
All right, thanks, Pierre.
I live in the world where the CDC does not control European nations.
One sec, Dave.
He keeps making that point. It's a good logical point, but I don't think the audience really knows what he's saying there. What he's basically saying is their whole argument is like, oh, we're just going to try to find any way to discredit every single organization where you can get information from. We're just going to attack. We're going to commit the genetic fallacy. We're going to attack the source of the information rather than the information itself. And Dave's pointing out okay, well, you can attack the American institutions, but you're telling the American institutions don't control all of the other institutions across the globe that have arrived at the same conclusion. So how do you explain that, right? That's the point he's trying to make, but he doesn't really have the time to make it.
We do gotta move.
Are they going to let these guys have a closing statement? Because that was insane. That was Was that all the way back here? No. Probably about right here. That was like 5 minutes of just new arguments they brought up that these guys didn't even have a chance to respond to.
Move on to the next.
Oh, and then we're just gonna move on. Okay. Hey, I'm gonna vomit out like 16 different arguments that you didn't even have a chance to respond to. It's not that you didn't have a response. It's that we didn't even give you a chance to respond to them. And now the entire audience is just left with those new talking points that these guys vomited out there that we didn't get to interrogate.
What's going on here? Oh, okay. Yeah, and just to recap, Steve had the most time on that one, 11 minutes and 14
yeah,
seconds.
no
Pierre,
fucking
second,
shit.
10 minutes.
He just
4
monologued
seconds.
for like the last 10 minutes
for
of
the
this shit.
video. Dan had 7 minutes and 1. The next question is, new measles outbreak. Is misinformation to blame? First to go.
All right, I'm sorry, guys. I'm getting kind of tired. Maybe I'll do a part 2 of this tomorrow in the morning when I'm a little bit more, up and at 'em, fresh. I'm feeling pretty tired and exhausted, but my God, this is fucking painful to watch. You know what? We gotta watch a train wreck happen, though, right? We gotta sit there and consume the dreadful content. We have to watch in horror and fascination. So, yeah, we'll probably continue on with this tomorrow, especially when I'm a little bit more alert and not feeling kind of like mentally and physically exhausted. All right, guys, you should get vaccinated. Look, science, industry, institutions are not perfect, but when you have more eyes on something than less, that tends to be a really good system, and especially a system that has standards around being able to update itself, being able to take in new information, versus the narratives that these guys spin, which is that they will go down rabbit holes of just kind of cherry picking, like the one idea, the one author, the one scientist, the one data set that seems to agree with them, even though most of the time you could see from like this debate, they don't actually read into those studies. They don't actually know these people that they name drop so much. They just know enough to peddle it to push their narrative. And that's basically how this is all going to work. All right, well, have a good one. Talk to you guys later. Bye.